seems like it's getting backed up, and when it gets backed up, it's coming out somewhere. And then, I thought the damage would actually be worse than it was, because when I saw the videos, like it jumped 3 times, there was a lot of water coming in.
So I just have this information and then deadline. Okay. And it's emailed too, but hard copy.
Special.
Hi, thank you, sorry.
It's okay.
They were winning.
Yep, we're
We
ready.
had this.
I'll call this meeting to order. Shall we do this in closed
Sure. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is to adopt tonight's agenda. And I don't believe we can change this.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. First item on the agenda is the public hearing for the fiscal year 22 district budget. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Okay, does everybody have a booklet? With you there? I'll go through most of the funds. I won't go through all of them, but I'll go through most of them. If you have questions along the way, just go ahead and stop. Okay, so just big picture stuff with this budget this year. It's larger in terms of revenue and expenditures compared to last year's budget. The main difference is increased revenue. Well, there's a couple main differences. One of them is increased revenue in the form of federal money with the different acts that have been passed. It's also an increase in state funding, and part of it is just probably a little bit more accurate in terms of units than last year. I think that this is probably going to be a little bit closer to what we see. Last year, we weren't quite as close as probably what we should have been. Some other big things that you'll see here, maybe that you haven't seen in the past, is that we've got funds budgeted for the field house project, and Kim put that in an area basically just for that project that we normally don't house money in. So I'll talk about that when we get to that part of the budget. On page 1, we have the M&O revenues. This shows you the big picture, estimating a carryover balance of $1,500,000 and an overall budget of about $4.5 million. This is calculated using a base support amount of $1.7 million, and that base support amount is an increase from last year to a greater amount of units, which is, remember, driven by attendance, enrollment, all of those things, and also depending on the grade levels of the enrollment. On page 2, you have the budget expenditures. These are the M&O expenditures. Some of the things to note on this one. I said page 2, but it's actually, they call it page 1 again. We again in 546, under a detention center program, we budgeted $100,000 in that. We generally do that each year. We didn't have to use it the last few years, but it's there in case something like that comes up and we need it. The total appropriated budget increases expenditures by about $700,000, due largely to $500,000 being budgeted in here towards the Fieldhouse project. And then there's also the Contingency Reserve in here, which is 195,848. And that can be found on the next page. It says page 2. And remember, this can be up to 5% of your budget. Okay, any questions there? Okay, moving on to fund number 220. This is the Federal Forest Reserve Fund. We have a carryover of just over $77,000 in the Federal Forest Reserve Fund with an overall budget of about $84,000 there. Remember, this fund, there's quite a bit of flexibility in there. In the past, we've used it for buses quite a bit, I believe. Okay, 241. Which is page 4. This is driver's education. We have an overall budget for driver's ed at $43.80. Remember, this is pass-through money, and a lot of it depends on how many kids we have enrolled. Is really what it is. We had a hearing 1 or 2 years ago, and we increased driver's ed fees and so forth to make that a little bit more current, and so that that's budgeted, but like I said, it depends on the number of kids we have in driver's ed.
So it's quite a bit less to do it through the school, of course, versus the private. So are we covering it, or is it something we want to consider at some point to even do another hearing to raise it again? Typically,
Let's run in this year's to see, but last year I think we came out pretty close to.
pretty close. Okay, I mean, if we're coming out close, that's one thing. I think it's almost double to do it.
We
Right,
might have
so we
lost
could-
a little bit last year, that's why we bumped it up.
Okay, I'd say we could
Yeah.
maybe even raise it again if needed, you know. but something-
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Quite a bit more.
Yeah. Okay, Fund 243, the State Professional Technical Fund. This is on page 5. No, it's not in order, I guess, for me, actually.
Well, the revenues are different than the.
I'm with you, okay. So I'm just gonna say the fund number, which is 243. This is the State Professional Technical Fund. And we budgeted just under $25,000 in the Pro Tech Fund 243. These funds are based on kids and CTE courses that we offer to kids and our teachers. So we have about 2 classes, I believe, where we don't get CTE funds for because I believe it's because they're junior high classes is what it is, but it's worth it for us. Okay, 245 technology. We have in revenue, we anticipate just over 51,000 there, which is down from a few years ago and up just a tiny bit from last year, but we expect it to be pretty similar to last year. That's another area that's just been hit by the legislature as far as with everything that's been going on. 246, substance abuse. This is a special distribution. There was carryover in this account, so the amount budgeted is $17,734. Our anticipated revenue this year is about $3,000. We, in the past, I believe we've used those funds for various things that we've done as far as for kids attending safe and drug-free type events, speakers. I think we've even used it for like security cameras and so forth. So things like that. 250, which is a new fund. This is ESSER 3 from the American Rescue Plan, or the American CARES Act, I should say. We anticipate over 200,000 there, but there is some time as far as that goes. It doesn't need to be spent necessarily this year, so we are being cautious about that because we do anticipate down the road, possibly funds being held back, and so we need to be prepared for that.
And there's stipulations on how that can be spent as well.
Okay, Fund 251, which is Title 1A. We have budgeted in revenue $44,000. We generally use pretty much all of it. That's used for salary and benefits for the Title I room, teacher and aide. And Kim, feel free to fill in the gaps if I'm missing anything here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, 252 is the ESSER 2 federal money. This is from the CRRSA Act. We have about $89,000 budgeted there. Those are more federal COVID-related funds. We also have some time to spend those as well. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of federal money there to be used over the next few years.
Which one is that?
254.
251
Oh,
is pretty much
252.
done, so we really don't need anything with that one.
Yeah, I think I misspoke on that.
That's okay.
The ESSER
But-
1 money is pretty much spent.
Yeah, so
The deadline for that one, the
is
ESSER
the
1
other
was
one,
this month.
actually, so it really shouldn't even be there. It was just a mistake, so, but it's okay, because it looks like. So you did 254, Steve?
Yeah, 254, so that's the ESSER 2 money. And again, you know, there's various requirements as far as how to spend that money. They're fairly similar, all of them, with little differences. So down the road, when we are more prepared to start utilizing that money, we'll bring something to you as far as to review. 257, which is IDEA Part B. This is used for special ed salaries and benefits. We have $58,000 budgeted, which is pretty close to fiscal year 21 as well. Fund 260, which is school-based Medicaid, we have $45,000 budgeted, which is the same as fiscal year 21. It's also used for special ed salaries and benefits. Title 4A, Fund 261. This can be used for other title programs, and usually is. We have $10,000 budgeted. Which is the same as last year. 262, which is Title 5B, which is the REAP money. We've got $32,633 budgeted, which is a bit more than last year. These funds are somewhat flexible. We've used them in the past somewhat for like Leader in Me, for improving instruction, and different programs like that, social and emotional learning. Fund 271, which is Title 2A. Let's see, budget for benefits related to Title I. So generally the Title I budget doesn't fully cover the Title I expenses. And so we fill in the gaps with some of these like this one. 273, which is the 21st Century Program. We have $119,901 that we anticipate getting and spending. The district. So this is the first year in the new grant. And so this is a little bit more than last year, because the last time we went through this, it decreased each year. I actually believe this one is going to stay flat the entire time, which will be nice. And so that's where we stand with this one. Currently, this pays for 50% of the salary for kindergarten. And then we're paying for full benefits for kindergarten and then half of it. Because remember, the state only is going to fund 0.5 for kindergarten. $290 is child nutrition. We have $115,000, almost $116,000 budgeted, which is similar to last year. And And this one's really an estimate. A lot of it is based on what's happening, what we're seeing
Well,
with kids.
right, because we had all the 3 months, we were getting more revenue in, so we kind of budgeted on that revenue we got in this year, so it could be less, but at least we're budgeted high in case we do get that kind of money, we can still use it and need it.
Okay, there's no substantial changes in Fund 310, the bond redemption and interest. So, let's see. 420 plant facilities, so we have a carryover of 129,000 in the plant facilities with an overall budget of 188,000. We stay near 50,000 each year as far as spending that plant facility dollars. And then we have that reserve in there in case we have, you know, a major emergency. But we stick with, generally the summer projects is where we spend the bulk of those dollars. And so that's what you'll see tonight, like in the action item. But we're right at about 50,000 each year as far as on the facilities. And skipping ahead to 610, the internal service fund. That's fairly similar to last year. No real changes there. And that's the last one. Any questions for Kim or I? One thing I did, I don't think I mentioned it, but on the expenditures at the beginning of the budget, we did have less unappropriated funds for this coming year because we did appropriate more funds for that field house project, and so that's why it's quite a bit less. Anything else?
Sounds good.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess we'll declare the hearing closed. Next item on the agenda is an executive session.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
I'll second it.
We move to second to go into executive session. This needs to be a roll call vote. Amy, would you call a roll?
We take roll call, we go into executive session. Mr. Parks?
Aye.
Mr.